Čau, s Kino Otokom Izola Činemo smo zaključili v nedeljo zvečer, zato bomo danes malo kasneje podrobneje pogledali pogovor, ki se je na festivalu zgodil po dokumentarnem filmu o življenju filmarja Roberta J. Flahertyja in njegove žene in sodelavke Frances. No, najprej pa nekaj novic. Čez 2 dni se pričenja kranjski igralski filmski festival Kraft, ki je letos izgubil svojega največjega koproducenta, edini art kino v mestu, Moj kino Kranj. Ta se je zaprl zaradi novih uvedb, na podlagi katerih se še kar vrši bojkot slovenskega filma v kinematografih in zaradi katerih bodo morali kinematografi poleg tega, da že za avtorske pravice plačujejo producentom, zdaj plačevati še dodatno breme. Na novinarski konferenci festivala Kraft pa so potožili tudi zaradi zmanjšanja financiranja strani mestne občine Kranj. Projekcije bodo tako letos v stolpu Škrlovec, kjer imajo na voljo le okoli 60 sedišč. Zato prihodnost festivala, sploh kar se tiče lokacij, ni najbolj jasna. Ne želijo pa se vrniti nazaj k projekcijam na odprtem, saj so bili menda tako preveč odvisni od vremena. Poleg tega so lahko filme predvajali samo pozno zvečer. No, zaradi pomanjkanja prostora naj bi bila okrnjena spremljevalni in strokovni program, del katerega bo menda izveden šele jeseni v Ljubljani. Ko je Kraft še gostoval v kinodvorani Moj kino, so organizirali tudi dobro obiskane in brezplačne projekcije za šole, ki jih letos zaradi finančnih okoliščin tega dela in koncertov ne bodo izvedli. Bodo pa pripravili dogodek posvečen plesnemu filmu in zavrteli cikel najnovejših kratkih igranih slovenskih filmov in cikel študentskih igranih filmov ZAGRFT in Novogoriške univerze. Kar se tiče svetovnega dogajanja, pa naj čestitamo Studiu Ghibli, ki bo v nedeljo 15. junija praznoval 40. obletnico svojega delovanja. Gre za animacijski studio, katerega sedež je najti v Koganeju v Tokiju. Njihova maskota ali najbolj prepoznaven simbol pa je lik ogromnega duha, ki spominja na rakunjega psa in mačko hkrati, govorimo o Totoroju iz animacije Moj sosed Totoro. Med najbolj znanimi njihovimi deli so še Princesa Mononoke iz leta 1997, Čudežno potovanje, Čarovnik Howling, Gibljivi grad, Ponjo, Fant in čaplja in drugi. Studio Ghibli so leta 1985 ustanovili režiserja Hayao Miyazaki in Isao Takahata ter producent Toshio Suzuki. Ponašajo se z nagradami Animaž Grand Prix, Japonske filmske akademije, 7 Oskarji, Zlatim medvedom, Zlatimi globusi, Baftami in še čem. No, ime njihovega studia pa sicer izhaja iz italijanskega glagola Ghibli, kar je bil vzdevek za izvidniško letalo Caproni C-310 oziroma 309, ki so ga Italijani uporabljali za prelete Sahare. Vzdevek naj bi izhajal iz potalijančene verzije libijsko-arabske besede za topel puščavski veter, ime pa je izbral Miyazaki kot navdušen letaloslovec, kar naj bi se mu zdela super ideja, da bo nov studio zapihal z novim vetrom skozi industrijo animeja.
Chihiro, we're almost there.
What's this old building?
It looks like an entrance.
Wait for me!
You shouldn't be here. Get out of here, now!
Mom! Dad!
It's a bathhouse for the spirits. It's where they come to replenish themselves. And this is certainly no place for humans.
What is it that you want?
Don't be afraid. I just want to help you.
Once you've met someone, you never really forget them.
O 120. obletnici slovenskega filma in posvečanju dostopnosti arhivov smo nekaj govorili že v prejšnji teden, v pretekli oddaji. Dogodki na to temo pa se nadaljujejo tudi v tem tednu. Do petka namreč pod okriljem Mednarodnega arhivskega sveta poteka tudi Mednarodni teden arhivov. Do takrat bo na ogled razstava Od filma do arhiva, pridružili pa so se tudi pobudi pod geslom Arhivi za vse, s poudarkom na inkluzivnosti in dostopnosti javnih arhivov s pomočjo sodobnih tehnologij in digitizacije. Mednarodno nevladno organizacijo ICA so sicer ustanovili 9. junija leta 1948 na pobudo UNESCO. Danes pa združuje arhive in arhivske institucije po vsem svetu, med njimi nacionalne in regionalne arhive ter arhivska strokovna združenja. Skupno je torej v njej 1900 članov iz 199 držav. V sosednjo državo Hrvaško pa na bivši Motovun, zdaj že 3. leto v Gorski Kotar preseljeni festival Cinehil, pričakujejo letošnjega dobitnika Zlate palme, Džafarja Panahija, ki bo na Cinehilu prejel nagrado za življenjsko delo Maverick. Poleg njegovega zadnjega pa bodo odvrteli še retrospektivo njegovih del. Festival bo letos potekal od 22. do 27. julija v Fužinah ob jezerih Bajer in Lepenica. Panahi pa bo fizično na tem festivalu prvič. Pred 11 leti je v času, ko ni smel potovati, na Motovunu že nastopil kot predsednik tedanje žirije v izgnanstvu. Režiser sicer slovi kot avtor družbeno-kritičnih filmov na meji med resničnostjo in fikcijo, v katerih opozarja na družbene pritiske in krivice, zaradi česar je bil že večkrat cenzuriran, aretiran in kako drugače sankcioniran. Vseeno nikoli ni nehal snemati, no Cinehilovo nagrado Maverick pa že od leta 2008 podeljujejo prav ustvarjalcem, ki so pri svojem delu plavali proti toku, pokazali filmski pogum ter etični odnos do sveta ter širili meje filmskega izraza. Direktor Cinehila Igor Marković je za Panahija dejal, da bi težko našli avtorja, ki je bolj plaval proti toku kot on. Poleg tega konec julija v Gorski Kotar pričakujejo še 100 filmov z vsega sveta, ki jih bo videti na več kot 60 projekcijah v Fužinah, Delnicah, Lokvah, Moravicah in drugod.
میگم دوز این داروی شاید زیاد بوده کارشو ساخته.
نیم ساعت پیش چکش کردم. الان فقط باید منتظر باشی.
تا کی باید منتظر باشیم؟
تا وقتی که بهوش بیاد.
چه فرقی میکنه بابا؟ چه بیهوش چه باهوش، یارو میخوایم بکنیم تو گور.
حق داره بدونه چرا گرفتیمش.
نه بابا. قشر خاکستری هم بالاخره زبون وا کرد. انقدر حرف نزدی ببینی باده داره از کدوم ور میاد بپری تو باد. عیزه به. کسخل جان. این بابا صدا تو شنیده، تو هر گوری باشی 2 دقیقه‌ای پیدات میکنه، کون تو پاره میکنه. حالا ببین شیبا خانوم، تو اصلا چه شکلی به رفیق عمو سالارت اعتماد داری؟ مطمئنی نمیفروشتتون؟ اینی که من میبینم یه چک بخوره اسم همه رو به خط گفته. تو هم واسه من بلبل شدی حق میکنی. تو چیزی از حق بارت جوجه؟
تو چرا فقط فکر میکنی خودتی که میفهمی؟ همه حق دارن نظر بدن.
شما یکی که خیلی حق داری عروس خانم. خب بالاخره سفید بخش شدی، ازدواج خوب کردی. فکر میکنی آمار 16 تو نداریم ما؟ ازش پرسیدی بابا جونش چجوری راه 100 ساله رو یه شبه عین فشنگ رفت؟
تو چرا انقدر مثل بچه ها فکر میکنی؟ چرا از این اون دنبال آتویی تو عقده‌هاتو سرشون خراب کنی؟ چرا نمیخوای بزرگ شی؟
اولی آروم باش عزیزم، وارد بازی این نشو.
آروم باشم که چی بشه؟ که دوباره شروع کنم به قرص خوردنم و زندگیمو به گند بکشم؟ نه واقعا دیگه بسه. لابدم الان این داره میگه من چرا ذوق عروسیمو ندارم. برای اینکه وقتی از زندان اومدم بیرون اون کثافت شایعه کرد که من باشون همکاری کردم. تا این بیرونم برام بشه یه زندون بزرگتر. من خواستم امروز تو اینجا باشی. تو هر چیزی که باید بدونی رو از دهن همین دیوس بشنوی.
Iz Italije pa prihaja vest, da se bo režiser Luca Guadagnino lotil umetne inteligence in sicer v filmu z naslovom Artificia. Za scenarij naj bi poskrbel humorist Simon Reich, nekdanji pisec scenarijev za Saturday Night Live. Zgodba naj bi se vrtela okrog filmskega portala Deadline.com oziroma ameriškega podjetja OpenAI, ki stoji za generativno umetno inteligenco oziroma klepetalnim robotom ChatGPT. Guadagnino je trenutno v zaključevanju nekega drugega filma, ki ga je prav tako posnel pri Amazon MGM Studios in bo v kinematografe prišel oktobra.
Beach. I figured if I made the reservation and packed our bags, it would eliminate most of the reasons to say no.
Zdaj pa sledi odlomek iz Kino Otoka, kjer smo poleg glasbenega koncerta Polone Janežič ob filmu Človek za ranov lahko videli tudi dokumentarni film o ustvarjalcih tega filma in o samem snemanju. Festival je namreč obiskal pravnuk Roberta J. Flahertyja, sam Ivan Ingen, ki je avtor več kot 30 filmov, v katerih se večinoma ukvarja z dejanjem gledanja in z različnimi strategijami manipulacije najdenih ali pozabljenih posnetkov. Tako je prišel tudi do posnetkov, ki so ostali skorajda zapuščeni in tudi precej nedotaknjeni v hiši sredi ZDA in so pripadali njegovi praprababici in prapradetku Frances in Robertu J. Flahertyju. To je bil ameriški filmar, ki velja, da je prvi režiral in produciral celovečerni dokumentarni film z naslovom Nanook iz severa, kar se je zgodilo leta 1922. S tem je postavil temelje dokumentarnemu in etnografskemu filmu, ki pa ga je ustvarjal tako, da je prišel v eno okolje, izbral ljudi in z njimi posnel inscenirane prizore. Tako so nastali Moana, Južno morje in Človek za ranov. S pomočjo posnetega arhivskega materiala in dnevnikov Flahertyjeve žene Frances je sami razkril ozadja delanja teh filmov, njuno delovno dinamiko in tudi življenje njune družine. Njuno delo v veliki meri, oziroma njeno delo v veliki meri ni bilo priznano v filmski zgodovini, sami pa je zdaj vse to tudi dokončno razkril. Kako je prišel sploh na idejo za delanje tega filma?
So, about 5 years ago, I was working with Mika Daniel, a Finnish film director, a colleague and a friend, about a film that dealt with, it's called Monica in the South Seas, and it's the story of Monica going to Samoa that we see in the end of this film. And we made a documentary out of it, and we were doing research for many years on it. And during that research period, there was things that were popping up that didn't really fit into that project. The stories behind the scenes and Francis's story and so on. And then I kept on kind of I kept those tidbits of those finds on a side desk in a way. And then at some point I realized that story of Francis and the daughters and all the other people involved was kind of, in a way, much more complex, but also kind of more important. And we completed Monica in the South Seas, which is a kind of quite straightforward documentary about Monica's trip to Samoa and making this amazing soundtrack, which is great. Her soundtrack is great, maybe our film is okay, but this residue then was something that bothered me, that I had this story of kind of like contradiction to all the stories, all the official narrative of how Robert is such a great man and how he's made these amazing films and the first documentary and so on, and all this evidence, all this material I found was kind of showing another side to it, not necessarily a contradiction, but a broader side. And then I asked, while I was doing that research, there was a lot of people I contacted, researchers and Flaherty experts, who always say, oh, somebody should make a film about Francis, oh, somebody should make a book about Francis. But in a way, nobody has, or did. And then I thought, well, I guess I'll do it.
Najbolj kontroverzen del dokumentarca V senci je ta, da nam razkrije, kako malo dokumentarnosti je bilo v teh navideznih dokumentarističnih delih zakoncev Flaherty. Res, da sta bila med prvimi, ki so se tega lotevali, in šlo je za neke druge čase, ampak danes malo komu pade na pamet, da bi ob prihodu v vas domačine denimo najprej slekal, da bi izgledali bolj primitivno, nato pa začel snemati tako, da bi jim povedal, kako naj reagirajo denimo na gramofon, ki ga vidijo prvič, in se tako pretvarjajo, da ga zares vidijo prvič.
I hope it's already quite clear that the Flahertys were great spinners of stories. They started from before even Nanook was made. They besides the filmmaking, they had this whole thing about spinning these stories, myths about their own narrative. They made a narrative of what they're doing and what they experienced, and they wrote books about them, of these stories. And then everybody else referred to those stories as the facts in the historical books and the articles and criticism and so on. So we have this film history, yes. So we have this whole library of things being told as facts about 100-year-old history, 100 years of history that has been based on somebody kind of promoting their film without really worrying about, facts. And they were, of course, in the beginning when they were making Nanook, they were entertainers. There was no such thing as a documentary film, and they were trying to make a good box office hit, and they want to make a living, and all kind of really valid reasons. And they were, the times were different as well. So out of that comes this incredible burden of a kind of problem with authenticity, and then that combined with the films, which are kind of about something, about being true, about being authentic. So there's a really nice, complex contradiction there, which is referred to in so many documentary films and books about documentary films and so on. And it's a wonderful playing field, and this is my little little kind of wiggle into that world and hopefully giving a little addition to that discussion, which is definitely very complex, but also quite intriguing because it's like a fiction in some ways.
And how much of this have you already also known? Because, you know, it's your family and we see your grandmother in the beginning. Is this something that was also at the back of your head for a while, you know, while you were growing up?
No.
Hearing about this people?
No, the Flahertys where Monica was very protective of everything. She didn't even allow us to go into the farm until she died. And the family members were kind of totally out of there was no access to that history because she was the one who was protecting her parents' legacy by denying everything, any kind of other point of view, like really horribly from today's point of view. But she was defending her own world, which was the pre-70s values, and she used to call, even when she was 80, she called her parents mommy and daddy. That tells a lot of Freudian issues. So they had a very strong protective, and I was living in Finland, my mother's from Finland, and I really had nothing to do with that side of the family. I happened to be a filmmaker, but only after Monica died I had that access, like I'm trying to show in the film. I suddenly got kind of a hole into this world that I knew really nothing about, and I had to go through everything because nobody else was that interested in it. It was too complicated and too nightmarish job for anybody else in the family, and so I got involved in this, and I'm trying not to be Monica number 2 either. I'm trying to open it up and not deny or cut it off.
Perhaps a side question to this, because you're opening up an unofficial history, you know, the side histories, if you wish. I was actually very happy when I saw your film that, you know, it's not this. If it would be a mainstream film, this would be, you know, the untold story, the forgotten voice of, you know, women. But you're very subtle in your approach. You also, you know, you nuance things. It's not straightforward to, you know, this was bad and this was good. I guess this was important to you.
Well, it was very important because I didn't want to make Francis into the hero, because we would do the same thing that we did with Robert in a kind of a new context, that we would make her the great. I still feel I can maintain that without Francis there wouldn't be even Nanook, but it doesn't mean that she didn't do things without problems, and it was very difficult to find from her incredible amount of correspondence and diaries, things where she would open up, like what you see here, like a little bit the background. She would be very much protective of their project, which was glorifying him to sell the films. And she gave lots and lots of interviews where she would just keep on saying the same things that they kind of had decided to say about the things they're supposed to be kind of keeping on. And so I was trying to find a kind of a crack in that history and in her voice, and I wanted to have also other people involved, because it wasn't only one, it wasn't only two, it was lots of people who David. Nobody's ever mentioned David anywhere, but he was an amazingly important part of that history, and he gets hardly any credit anywhere, and very tragic figure in many ways. But I kind of wanted to have him in as a kind of to kind of balance the thing that we know that families are never, you know, they're complicated, and this history is very complicated. But I wanted to have these bits and pieces, and maybe the audience can decide how they want to see it and how they want to kind of interpret that.
Robert Flaherty je bil eden od 7 otrok geologa Roberta Henryja Flahertyja in Susan Klockner. Od očeta se je nalezel v raziskovalne žilice in začel tudi sam odkrivati nove kraje in druge kulture. Tako je recimo v Torontu zaslovel kot fotograf, predvsem zaradi portretov ameriške divjine in njenih nativnih ljudstev. No, leta 1914 se je poročil s Frances Hubbard, v Parizu diplomirano sufražetko, prav tako hčerko geologa. No, Frances je večkrat potem tudi prevzela režisersko taktirko, filme pa je tudi montirala, distribuirala in nenazadnje producirala. Približno v tem času je tudi Flaherty spoznal Inuita Georgea Wetteltuka, o katerem je napisal knjigo Moji eskimski prijatelji Nanook s severa, in ni minilo dolgo, da se je odločil potem posneti film. Za razliko od precej številčnih ekip, ki so delale s Flahertyjema, pa se je metafilma, torej filma o filmih, Van Ingen lotil bolj kot ne v solo zasedbi.
Well, I think that there's kind of, it's surprising but there is people already that I've heard some people. I also sent my rough cuts to a lot of Flaherty experts because I know them and I just want to get their feedback. But it seems like if somebody's written their thesis on Robert Flaherty and then they've been teaching Robert Flaherty's genius for the last 40 years in a university in America, Boston maybe, they feel that then if somebody comes and tells that maybe it wasn't Bob who was a genius, but maybe he was quite a kind of a fuck up, but they got amazing stuff done together. Maybe it does cause concerns, and I'm quite happy with that as well because if there's anything really important in this whole Flaherty legacy, it's this discussion that we've been having for 50, 60, 70 years about building the igloo and was it right or wrong and all that, and that's really important because there's not many films that have that kind of shelf life and it's not the film, it's the topic and the whole thing about us believing that somebody's making a documentary and we kind of want to, the contract is really important, and the notion of that contract and discussing, the contract doesn't exist if we don't keep on discussing and problematizing the contract, and that's why documentary is such an amazing concept because it's a total, it's like so complex and at the same time that's what's so interesting.
I also like how in your film you have at one point you say you mentioned the so-called Flaherty method, and then the next thing you say is this process was becoming a mess, and you show this mess in a really nice way.
Yeah, well, they did use that kind of. They were very good at taking, figuring out what the press wants to read, what they want to write, and what critics want to write about, and then they would kind of go for that, like the non-preconception thing, which kind of obviously will lead to a dead end. But they did use that for a little while, and then it went to something else. And Frances, after Robert died, she kept on that same thing with the seminar, and it was a kind of like for them it was like they always said something and then they saw what, if nobody reacted they would say something else about the same thing, and the archives are just full of contradictions, and like Monica also did the same. She's saying one thing and doing the other, and it's kind of brilliant material for showing, cinema's great because you can say one thing and then show the opposite. Those two things can be simultaneous, and then the audience can feel the contradiction, and that's the great thing about film. Writing a book about this, which I thought first would be much more boring, that this is a kind of great stuff for, there's good, drama here as well, from that kind of subtle point of view, that it's keeps us kind of going for that. I mean, I'm so happy you all stayed here for 2 hours, it's a long time.
Sam Ivan Ingen s filmom V senci razkriva doslej nepoznane ali celo nepriznane dele družinske zgodovine Flahertyjevih. Ga je to, da gre za njegove prednike, torej njegove bližnje, družino, ki je sicer ni poznal, na kakšen način oviralo pri ustvarjanju filma?
I did hide a lot. and I think anybody's family, if you go through anybody's family, there's things you don't need to say because there's lots of sad things, a lot of things which are not necessary for contributing to to be shared with everybody, and you have to respect people's, even if they're dead. You have to. I'm working with dead people here, and I have to respect that, of course, regardless of who they are. But it's kind of touching, of course, because then I go through my grandmother's diaries and her childhood papers and her correspondence with her mother and father and all the Freudian issues coming out, and what is something that could be useful to share with everybody to talk about this film historical aspects and what's not necessary. And it's interesting how some of my family members, my cousins, don't really care about it. They don't even want to see the film particularly. Some other people have watched it, and then my cousins, and they were very concerned that I'm not telling the right kind of a story because they only know the story of the hero man, because that's a great cocktail story when you just mention by the side that my great-grandfather was Robert Flaherty, and in the right context it sounds good, but so it depends, and that's when you do work with family material, you are faced with that. You take a certain responsibility a certain privilege as well, and then you're left with a certain obligation, a certain kind of a burden of what to do with it and what to kind of how to pass it on and how to preserve it or whatever. And it's tricky, but I think that's working with history is always like that anyway, be it your own family members or somebody just anonymous.
Kako pa je bilo z avtorskimi pravicami, glede na to, da je v filmu porabil kar nekaj odlomkov iz filmov, ki so nastali pri velikih filmskih studijih?
I have access to maybe 40,000 still images from that, so there's a lot of pictures. To select something that works in this film, somebody asked me just recently that they are making a film about Robert Flaherty and they wanted to find a picture with the three daughters, the mother and the father. And out of that, maybe, I don't know, tens of thousands of images, there's only one photograph where the whole family is together. And that's a passport photograph.
Oh, yeah.
So that tells you a lot about how they're constructed. Even the photographs of the documentation of their everyday and their filmmaking is all constructed. So the problem is, or the question is that if you would make an exhibition or a book or something, the main focus would be the staging of them, because they are all incredibly staged and very, it's interesting. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it, but that would be kind of the focus. And it's very interesting that they kind of on the public all the time with their photographs. Every image is kind of thought of how it looks in their portfolio, and they destroyed a lot of photographs. I'm sure the ones where the family was posing together as well. So yes, the images are amazing and it's like a slideshow in some ways, but it's some of them are and some of them are from the internet, and some of them are mobile phone shots from archives, whatever. But there's lots of really quite striking images there.
As you said, if you put it into a book, it's there. It's a bit more, tricky with the rights and all that. But I'm wondering, because you talk about this a lot, have you taken something out of the film? Did you have to yet?
No, I don't. I decided when I started making this. This was a rough cut was 8 hours long. This film, and I was working and it was quite good. But I realized I can't finish it myself because I'm doing the music, I'm doing the editing, I'm doing the color correction, I'm doing sound design, I'm doing everything. So 8 hours would just mean that I would get it ready before I kind of die, kind of thing. And that's not really interesting for anybody. So I kind of ended up squeezing it like that. But if somebody comes out with a letter telling me to take it out, I'll consider it then. But I don't think that will happen. It's not. I've been using found footage and archival material and clearly downloading material for 40 years now, and nobody's ever approached me. And because I'm not really that successful or making any money with it, so I'm quite safe, I think. And I'm just showing what's available in the world for us to see. Anyway, it's not like I'm not showing anything more than that.
Iz preteklosti se ozrimo še v prihodnost. Prijatelji kulture, filma in dostojnega dela bodo ob obletnici hrastniške stavke in izboljšanih pogojih dela praznovali solidarnost, tovarištvo in pomen organiziranja za skupne cilje, so zapisali pri festivalu delavskega filma Kamerad, ki bo potekal v Hrastniku med 20. in 22. junijem.
Festival delavskega filma postaja res prepoznan po celotni Sloveniji in ima tudi mnogo mednarodnih gostov.
In verjamemo v to, da je naša prihodnost možna, samo če bomo delovali povezani skupaj in gradili na skupnosti. festivalu Kamerad imajo vsi filmi dušo.
Za konec še napoved za enega bolj pričakovanih filmov tega poletja, ki pa zaenkrat kritikov ni preveč navdušil. A vseeno ga poglejmo. Ob napovedanih prihajajočih 40 stopinjah Celzija nam bo še kako ugodilo ogledati si tudi kakšen film, ob katerem ni treba preveč razmišljati.
When you think of me, you should think of fire.
I know you. I know your pain.
This isn't done until they're dead.
Buena suerte, señorita.
When you think of me, you should think of fire.
Those people that you're looking for, they're surrounding this hotel right now.
Risen from the ashes, again and again, fire.
You don't choose to be a killer. You are chosen.
No, I chose this!
Consequences.
Risen from the ashes, again and again. Fire, again and again. Again and again. Fire.
And what, may I ask, is your name?
When you think of me, you should think of fire.
Hvala za ogled in se vidimo spet čez en teden ob isti uri.